At the start of the story, we meet a man named Nicholas who visits his sister's bar. It's his 5th wedding anniversary, but Nicholas isn't happy in his marriage. He tells his sister that he might get a divorce soon. He also mentions his wife's strange habit. Every anniversary, she hides gifts for him to find using clues. However, their relationship has lost its spark over time. When Nicholas returns home, he finds his wife missing. The table is broken and glass is scattered everywhere, which seems odd. Concerned, he calls a detective. After searching the house, the detective starts to suspect Nicholas. Evidence suggests something is wrong, and it even seems like his wife, Amy, may never have existed. Nicholas, a writing teacher, is questioned by the detective. Amy, his wife, was a well-known writer. Despite the detective's suspicions, Nicholas doesn't provide clear answers. With no solid evidence against him, the detective has to let Nicholas go. The news of Amy's sudden disappearance spreads quickly, capturing everyone's attention. Nicholas doesn't seem concerned about his wife's disappearance, which makes everyone suspicious of him and his sister. People start to think they might have made Amy disappear for her wealth. Later, Nicholas reflects on his past with Amy. She wasn't just famous, but also very wealthy. When the country's economy took a downturn, both of them lost their jobs. Around the same time, Nicholas's mother fell ill. Without consulting Amy, he decided to move back to care for his mother. Amy reluctantly went with him. Sadly, his mother passed away shortly after. Despite this, Nicholas chose to stay. Over time, he became lazy and unmotivated. To help him, Amy opened a bar that he managed with his sister. However, Nicholas didn't take it seriously and often slacked off. Their relationship also started falling apart. They fought frequently, and Nicholas even became abusive towards Amy. Eventually, Nicholas got a job as a writing teacher at a school, where he met another woman, and they quickly started a relationship. Back in the present, the detective finds bloodstains in Nicholas's house, further increasing her suspicion. She also learns from neighbors that Amy felt unsafe with Nicholas, which led her to buy a gun. While searching the house, the detective finds traces of Amy in the bathroom and sends them for lab analysis. The results reveal that Amy was pregnant. When Nicholas is informed, he denies it, saying it's impossible because they had no such relationship. The detective becomes even more suspicious, doubting everything Nicholas says. Just then, a woman from the neighborhood arrives. The woman, who is also pregnant, tells the detective that she was a close friend of Amy. She reveals that Amy always wanted a baby, but Nicholas didn't. He had no intimate relationship with Amy. Hearing this, Nicholas becomes suspicious of the woman. He believes Amy would never confide in or befriend someone from the neighborhood. He shares his doubts with the detective, but the detective remains unconvinced. While investigating further, the detective finds Amy's diary. In it, Amy writes that she fears for her life because of Nicholas. This discovery strengthens the case against him, and the detective's colleague suggests they should arrest Nicholas. However, they still lack solid evidence to prove he harmed or made Amy disappear. The story then shifts to a woman driving a car. It's Amy, who has completely changed her appearance. As she drives, she recalls the day she went to the bar to see Nicholas. There, she saw him outside with one of his students, and they appeared very close. Realizing they had a relationship devastated Amy. Amy felt heartbroken and betrayed, especially because she had always supported Nicholas, even when she regained her wealth. Despite everything, Amy still married Nicholas. When they were both struggling without money or jobs, Amy even opened a bar for him. But now, seeing him cheat on her, she couldn't tolerate it anymore. She decided to take revenge. Amy started using Nicholas's credit card recklessly, making it seem like he was living extravagantly. This way, people would believe Nicholas was wealthy and wasteful. She also ensured she got his insurance money, creating the impression that Nicholas might have killed her for financial gain. Amy went even further by befriending a neighbor, the pregnant woman who claimed to be her friend. Amy told this neighbor about her troubled relationship with Nicholas, mentioning their constant fights and arguments. This was all part of her plan to gain sympathy and paint Nicholas in a bad light. To deepen the suspicion, Amy left her DNA sample in the bathroom, making it look like she was pregnant. The idea was to make the police think Nicholas killed her because she was expecting a child. In such cases, The punishment for the perpetrator is very severe. Amy even drew her own blood and placed it in the bathroom, cleaning it up just enough to leave traces for the police to find. She orchestrated all of this carefully, knowing it would make Nicholas the prime suspect. As part of her plan, Amy continued the tradition of their anniversary game, where she used to leave clues for Nicholas to find his gifts. This time, the clues were part of her bigger scheme to frame him. This time, Amy played the anniversary game differently. She left clues, not for Nicholas, but for the detective. Nicholas then goes to his sister's garage, where he is shocked to find a large amount of stuff bought with his credit card. Among the items, he discovers the weapon used to murder Amy. His sister becomes very anxious, realizing that both of them could be implicated in the case. However, Nicholas decides to leave the items as they are and walks away. Meanwhile, the detective, who has been tracking him, arrives with her team and finds the murder weapon. As a result, both Nicholas and his sister are arrested. After some time, Nicholas manages to get bail. He consults a skilled lawyer and explains everything, including his fear that Amy was mentally unstable. He confesses that he never felt safe with her. Nicholas then visits one of Amy's former friends, the same person Amy had accused of misbehavior, leading to his wrongful arrest. During their conversation, Nicholas learns that Amy is seeking revenge on him, just as she had done with her former friend. Determined to uncover the truth, Nicholas approaches another of Amy's friends, a wealthy individual. However, this friend refuses to speak with him. Despite everything, Nicholas still loves Amy. Meanwhile, Amy is living in a small town. One day, while out with her neighbors, she accidentally drops a lot of money. Her neighbor notices and later that night sneaks into her house to steal it. Amy is left without any money, which makes her feel very sad, and she begins to cry. In her distress, she calls one of her wealthy friends, someone who still cares for her. When the friend arrives, Amy tells him that Nicholas used to abuse her, both physically and emotionally. She explains that she feared for her life, which is why she left him and refuses to go back. Moved by her story, her friend offers to let her stay at his house where she can find some peace. Back in the town, everyone believes Amy is still alive, and they hold a march in her honor. People light candles, display pictures of her, and pray for her return. Nicholas stands among the crowd, deeply emotional. He publicly declares his love for Amy, saying that the door to his heart and home will always be open for her, hoping she will come back. Among the crowd is Nicholas's student, who becomes furious when she hears his speech. She immediately tells the media that she and Nicholas are now in a relationship. This news causes the public to turn against him, and many begin to believe that Nicholas is responsible for Amy's disappearance, or worse, her death. Feeling the pressure, Nicholas meets with his lawyer, who informs him that all the evidence is now stacked against him, and his reputation has been severely damaged. The lawyer advises Nicholas to appear on a famous talk show and confess his love for his wife. He suggests that Nicholas should admit his mistakes publicly, because if Amy is indeed plotting against him, she will likely be watching. Hearing him express his feelings might make her emotional and lead her to come back. Following this advice, Nicholas goes on the show and publicly declares, "I love my wife very much. I want her to come back." He puts on a heartfelt performance. Amy watches the interview with her wealthy friend. As she listens to Nicholas, she notices something. He's wearing the same tie she had given him as a gift. Her friend also sees it, and Amy begins to feel conflicted. Her emotions are torn, and she starts to consider going back home. However, her friend urges her not to return. He wants her to stay with him, and he doesn't want her to go back to Nicholas. This causes Amy to become increasingly angry at him, feeling as though he is controlling her. When her friend leaves for work later that day, Amy's frustration grows. She starts to hurt herself by making scars on her body. Later that night, when her friend returns home, Amy lures him into a room under the pretense of wanting to talk. Once inside, she brutally kills him. Amy's actions are so brutal that her clothes and body are drenched in blood. Afterwards, she leaves the scene and drives back home. When she arrives, the media is already gathered outside, and as Amy gets out of the car, she is covered in blood. At that moment, Nicholas sees Amy alive and covered in blood. She runs toward him and hugs him. But Nicholas remains skeptical. He believes that Amy, being a liar and manipulator, is simply putting on another act as part of some new plan. Amy is quickly taken to the hospital where she tells the detectives her side of the story. She explains that when she was a child, she and her wealthy friend were very close. He used to write her letters, and on one anniversary, he came to her house. She says she ran to escape him, but he coldly attacked her, causing her to lose consciousness. She claims that while she was unconscious, her friend took her to his lake house and did terrible things to her. To prove her story, she urges the detectives to check the CCTV footage. Amy insists that she had been pretending in front of the cameras, acting as though her friends were holding her hostage and torturing her. However, the detective, who has been investigating the case from the beginning, begins to doubt Amy's version of events. She starts to reconsider everything Nicholas had said earlier. The detective questions Amy, asking if her friend really kidnapped her as she claimed. The detective presses Amy, asking her why the murder weapon, which had her blood on it, ended up in the garage. She can't answer this question, which leaves her visibly frustrated. In her anger, she snaps, "Thank God I came back. If I hadn't, you would have imprisoned my innocent husband." She then pretends to faint, but the detective is no longer convinced. She now has serious doubts about Amy's story. Later, Nicholas brings Amy to his house and confronts her. He tells her to stop the act, declaring, "I know you're fine, and I know you killed your rich friend." Amy, always calculating, first checks to make sure Nicholas isn't recording their conversation. Satisfied that she is not being recorded, she finally confesses everything. But by this point, it seems almost irrelevant, as no one will believe her. The support has shifted, and now everyone stands with Amy. She then reveals, "When I saw your interview, I was convinced that you were the best for me. That's why I came back." After this, Nicholas consults his lawyer and the detective, preparing for what comes next. Amy tells Nicholas everything she had planned, and the detective concludes, "I have no evidence against him. He killed his friend to save himself. So even though everyone knows the truth, he won't be arrested." That night, when Nicholas is at home, Amy takes him with her. Nicholas seems unafraid of her now, as if he's no longer intimidated by her presence. The next morning, a reporter is scheduled to interview Nicholas. Before the interview, Amy tells him that he must accept everything she had planned for him, the shopping with the credit card, and even the times he raised his hand against her. She insists that their relationship, which once wasn't good, is now fine. Nicholas firmly refuses, stating, "I don't want to live with you, I want a divorce." In response, Amy reveals, "I'm going to be the mother of your child, so you can't leave me." Nicholas is taken aback by this revelation. Angrily, he denies it, saying, "That's impossible. We never had that kind of relationship." Amy calmly replies, "I planned for this too. You don't remember, but I made that happen. Now I am the mother of your child." Nicholas loses control, his anger flares, and he starts hitting Amy again. He shouts, "I will never live with you. How could you do something so low?" Amy calmly responds, "You will have to live with me because the whole world is against you. And when our child is born, your own child will hate you too." Now Nicholas is completely trapped. He realizes that the child is his responsibility, and even though he feels helpless, he knows there's no way out. Reluctantly, he agrees to live with Amy. Later, they appear in an interview together where they announce that their child will be born soon. Nicholas has now reluctantly accepted the situation and compromised with it. The story illustrates the consequences of betrayal within a relationship, showing how betrayal can entrap both individuals in a cycle of manipulation and guilt. Their lives take a drastic turn, and they find themselves facing situations they never imagined. Nicholas, in particular, faces the consequences of betraying his wife despite how kind and loving she was to him. On the other hand, Amy too wants things to settle and not escalate out of control. She wishes that, instead of manipulation and deceit, she could have spoken to her husband calmly and lovingly. Maybe if she had approached him differently, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Amy's cunning and betrayal have caused harm to many people. From this, we learn a valuable lesson. Always remain loyal to your partner and live for them. Betrayal only leads to pain and regret. And with